30. We'll go ahead and call the workshop to order. Before we get started on the agenda, Tyler had an addition, and just for simplicity's sake, we're going to add it at the beginning. So Tyler, if you want to go ahead with your item.
Sure. We were approached by a citizen who lives on Fox Ridge Drive, which is a subdivision out near Carter's Valley Road. There's a retaining drainage area that's right on the road there, but for some reason it's included in her property deed and it's not owned by the city. She wants to explore the option of deeding it over to us. I've talked with Jason and he's been out there to look at the area, and he said it technically should be ours and we should be maintaining it. I mean, it will add some more responsibility for them to take care of it, but he said if there was ever a flood or any kind of issue, we would need to have access to it, and technically we couldn't if we didn't own it. So it's more of a technicality. I'll talk with the town attorney and see what needs to be done, but wanted to let you all know and get your input on your thoughts about accepting that piece of property.
That would essentially be that if where a city can't do work on private property, if there was ever an issue of flooding, we couldn't do work on it because it would be private property at that point.
Correct.
So, I mean, I think we should, I'd encourage us to look at exploring what that looks like for us to take that over. Would that be at no cost, I'm assuming, to us?
Yeah, I think that the individual who owns the property would be responsible for going through an attorney and doing all the things to deed it over to us.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Then we'll go ahead and move on then to item number 1 on the agenda, which is update on the LPRF park progress.
So the bids have been advertised for the remodel and rebuilding of the pavilion and the bathroom. Those bids close next Thursday, the 15th. So I'll have a bid hopefully to bring before you at our next meeting on the 22nd for construction. And I think they're looking at a 180-day construction window to get that done. So hopefully by summertime it'll be finished up, which is our goal to get it done.
Will that complete that project?
Yes. And it'll give a men's, women's, and a family restroom, and then a storage area.
And the families where then we'll be able to go in and add the other grant that we received for the
changing table.
The changing table.
Correct.
The adult changing table. Which that was 100% reimbursed. So.
Yes. And they have accounted for that in the plans to make room for it.
Good. Okay. So realistically, we could be looking at starting the summer off with a new pavilion, new bathrooms, everything in the park. So
right.
I think that's great for that, and also completing that project will then make us eligible for future LPRF money.
And we can. I learned this week that we can apply for future LPRF even though we have one open.
Oh, that's
so I'm looking at that right now.
Very nice.
That was what I was curious about, if we had actually, because we've been carrying this one for at least 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's 24. Yeah. So it's a good thing that we're getting this completed, and then now we'll be able to start looking at possibly getting a future application in for continuing, the state assisting. I've actually been in contact with somebody about a healthy, not the Blue Cross Healthy Place, but another something to the state initiative of where they're trying to have more healthy facilities, type things like that. So I think it's while we can take advantage of those state funds, it's a great opportunity for us.
A couple more comments. I made a direct contact with a state employee that works with the grants this week. She's actually retired from the city of Kingsport and she lives here, so that's a good resource for us, and she's going to help us go through some ideas for grant funding.
That's wonderful.
And then the second, just unrelated but related to the park, is that the new swings were finished today.
Sweet.
So that's ready to go.
Now when does the cover go on?
It's already on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
You follow the city Facebook page.
That's not part of the LPRF, but that's just generally speaking for the park.
That's great. Does anybody have any other questions about the LPRF grant? All good. We'll move on to item number 2 then, resolution for virtual meeting attendance.
I have a draft resolution ready. I'll give it to Tyler to set up out to everybody put on the agenda for the next meeting. It's pretty straightforward. The issues are that how the body decides, and we put down the language I'd recommend is, it says, a member can be participate by electronic means if he's dealing with a family or medical emergency, he's been called into community service, or he's unable to attend the meeting due to inclement weather. And that determination will be made on a case-by-case basis at the start of the meeting by majority voted board members constitute a quorum at the physical location. Other than that, it's pretty much strictly out of the state statute. But like I said, I have them available, and I'll give them to Tyler to get to you guys for the board meeting.
So what that would mean is under certain circumstances, if you weren't able to be here because of medical issues or things like that, the board, the people who were in attendance here would vote to allow that person to participate via electronic means, which would be on your iPad. And that would then allow you to be able to participate in the meeting and vote, and your vote count even if you weren't physically here. You would be able to do that up to 2 times a year, Alan, is that correct? 2 times is the way it's the TCA code wrote it. And it's just something to give us a little bit of options where if somebody was to be sick or have medical issues, that they could still participate in the process. Since we have the iPads and things of that nature, the county has passed it, so I encourage us to look at that same policy as well. Questions on that? Move on then to item number 3, capitalization policy.
So this is something that was brought to me as part of the rate study that MTAS is doing on the sewer side. They want us to see that we have some policies in place. One of them is a capitalization policy. It just says if something is purchased over $5,000, it becomes a capital item. We may already have something like that in place. I'm still looking to see if we do, but if not, expect to see that as a resolution at the next meeting so that we're in compliance with the Tennessee Board of Utilities.
Would that be just utilities?
No, that's across the board, townwide. They're also talking about a debt management policy. That would also be townwide. They'd just like for us to have those things in place.
Any questions about that? Move on then to item number 4, preview of FY 2026-27 budget process.
Jim's going to be handing out a calendar. You've got one here. This is a budget calendar for the upcoming year.
Big fingers.
So these are some dates I'm looking at for preparing us to get ready to be in budget time, which we already are at this point, looking at preliminary information. But next week, we're going to have the department directors together for a budget kickoff meeting, and then their information will be due back within a month after that. And then I'm looking at March 4th for strategic planning. That's not been nailed down completely yet, but when it is, I'll let you know the details. And then April and May, or in March, we'll also need to have a budget work session where we sit down and go over the numbers. And then April and May, we'll hope to pass it on 2 readings and implement July 1st. So that's more of a roadmap for you to keep handy for the year to know what we're doing and what we plan to do.
Questions about that? Move on to item number 5, update on 911 call center dispatch cost share request from Hawkins County ECD.
So we went to the second meeting last week, and after about a 2-hour meeting, we finally got to a place where the Hawkins County ECD wants to move forward with the population-based formula for cost share. I proposed that we deal with the deficit they're dealing with as opposed to what they're trying to do with funding the entire operation. So I have some drafts here of some things that I offered up. The impact to the town of Mount Carmel would be, we're gonna have to come up with $136,000 based on their population process. The bottom line is they're 2 years into deficit budgeting. Next year, it triggers the state to come in and tell them we're going to start cutting or consolidating or doing whatever. So we can't do dispatch
And set the rates.
and set the rates. Well, they can't force us to pay though, but they'll have to deal with, they can't force us to pay. We just don't get dispatch from them. They get the 911, so they answer a call, they transfer it to us. What we do with it is up to us, and basically that's what Lynn said during our conversation is, once it's given to us, they don't care what happens with it. We have a good system, and a regional system makes sense, but you can't go out and ask for, $136,000 the first ask. I was pretty pointed when I said they've made raises of employee salaries and things like that have put them in this place and continue to put them in this place. So their deficit in 24-25 was $436,000. Their deficit in 25-26 was $536,000, $536,168. So using logic, their 26-27 projected deficit will be $659,487 based on the 23% increase in deficit year over year because of the raises and things.
So we're gonna get hit with their spending problem.
Well, I basically said that, and I said, you all did this in a vacuum, and now you're asking me to come and help you pay for that. I'm not indicting their service and what they do, but what I am frustrated at is they made these decisions. Their board made these decisions. And well, they have to have a competitive rate, just like we have to have competitive salaries to keep employees. We're still not overspending our budget. If I did what they did, you would fire me. And that's basically what I said to them in the conversation. So that's where I came up with the phased in incremental. If we're going to be partners in this and we're going to continue to do that, then we can look at doing that. But I still am of the opinion that the county should be doing this with the rate that they charge our residents for county services. No, the ECD is not a county agency, but it was formed with county initiative back in 1993. The county made that in their sole discretion to do that. Apparently our previous police chief had participated in this board, because I basically said that the towns and municipalities haven't had much input or say on this. And I said the other part of this is you're offering an advisory committee position to all of your participating municipalities. That's not going to fly. You're going to need full board seats for the people. If we end up contributing to this process, then we should have a seat on the table where decisions are being made.
If we're paying for their budget essentially, because that's what we're doing, then we should have a say so in their budget.
And you do by being on the board. That's what I was getting at. The advisory side gives you no teeth. Being on the actual board gives you the teeth. Now, there are rules from the state that elected officials can't sit on that board.
That's fine.
The mayor of the county is the one that appoints all of those people that sit on that board with the recommendation from so once again,
Which are most in Rogersville.
the county is
All in Rogersville.
critical in this process. And I basically said, I go, our residents are asking every day, what services do they get for the 61% higher tax rate that they pay to Hawkins County over the town of Mount Carmel, who provides all of municipal services? And you'll get the answer back, well, schools and sheriff's department and those types of things. But what other services do our residents get from them? And that's part of that challenge or problem. So I say all that to say I propose that. They're willing to entertain it. That's great. If you all don't want to pursue it, that's fine too. But we needed to move this, and I'm not buying off on $136,000 a year to start. I'll tell you that now. So at just dealing with the deficit, and that's them counting on the county's money still, because the county is in contract with them for $420,000. The cost share distributes out their projected deficit would be 659,000 with zero going into undesignated fund balance. And the other part of that is you have to have something going into undesignated fund balance because they're spending fund balance to balance their budget currently. If you don't replenish your savings account as you spend down your budget and you're using it to supplement without refunding it, you're going to go bankrupt. And I had that conversation with them. So I proposed, we'll go anywhere from a 0 to up to a 20% projected deficit with 20% unfunded balance. And I gave different rates and things like that. It was going to take Lynn 2 weeks, something to do it. I did it in about 15 minutes. So I actually have a spreadsheet that shows the unfunded balance and some of those other things. I'll pass it out to y'all when we get done, and if you want to go any further. I don't see this being an issue for the board at this coming meeting, but I want to keep you informed of this because eventually this is going to be an issue that we're going to have to talk about. The answer is they could pull out of doing dispatching services and just answer 911 calls, and they're going to just call the fire department or the police department and say, hey, you got a call here, you got a call there. I can't start up a dispatch center. Collectively, we can't start up a dispatch center. Between capital costs and personnel costs, there's no way for us to do that. So it comes out to about 11% would be our share. 11% of the cost share. Whereas the county is 72%, Churchill is 13%, and Burgoynesville is 4%. Rogersville doesn't have it because they have their own dispatch center and they handle it themselves, and Bulls Gap is included in Hawkins County. So I will answer any questions you may have. Let's tell her to pass this out.
But we'll still be paying twice, right? You said the county would be paying part of it, and
Well, your county taxes go
Your
towards it.
your
So you're
county
double
taxes go
taxed.
towards it. So the answer is yes. In my opinion, you are being taxed for a service, but they are not a true county agency.
But you also
They
have
are
to worry about too,
quasi-government.
when Mark DeWitt is sitting there saying things like, we're not gonna do anything about taxes because taxes look bad. So instead of the county wearing the black eye, the municipalities are gonna have to wear the black eye because he doesn't wanna do anything. Crazy that it's election year for county mayor too, so remember.
Okay,
Jim.
but go ahead.
What goes with this money that we're already paying on the phones? Where's that
Oh,
money
yeah,
going?
there's that too.
So
They get that too.
So I actually had that conversation. I said, well, maybe
I tell them,
you
you know what?
You want the number?
that money is
911.
designed. That money is
I can tell
designed.
them.
That money is designed to fund call taking, not dispatch, primarily. It doesn't mean that you can't use it to fund dispatch, but if you can't accomplish the call taking side, in my opinion, the state legislature's flawed here a little bit because they've made 911 answering points a focus, but they're missing the most important part, which is how do I bridge it to the emergency services side to get them to a call? Now, one of the other things that I think is happening, and I'm glad they're not using a call-based formula, because they generate calls based on if he's in the patrol car and initiates a call from his computer, it goes as a call for service to the dispatch center. So they're counting those as calls for service, even though they haven't done a damn thing.
See that, it should be just on calls that they receive. Like if we get a call for an assistance, we shouldn't get charged for that because we're assisting. We don't have to be there. You meet us there.
Correct.
At their proposed rate, I believe this is in an email you told us, sent this out, that essentially a singular call for service will cost the town $30.
28 and change.
$28.73.
I can't
So
remember
you
the
pick,
change.
$29.
you pick up the phone and call 911, essentially they're billing us $28 and change.
Yeah.
That,
Joe pulled the car over on 11W, 2870.
That is insane. Like, I'm
By
sorry,
the
that
way-
is
by
like
the way,
highway
that-
robbery.
But here's the deal, it's probably more than that, and the reason I say that is they're bolstering numbers of calls, and not every call is a emergent call. When Joe pulls over a car that may or may not, when they get a call for a barking dog or a loose animal, that's not an emergent call.
No, it's not.
So when they get a call for a domestic dispute or something like that, that's an in-progress call. That you get a response that's different than a general services call. So I'm concerned about how the numbers get bolstered, because it makes it look like they're busy, and they are. They're taking calls, I'm sure, but their numbers and their salaries, and they're trying to compete with others. That was the thing I got back and I said, look, we're all competing for others. I get it. And we're trying to maintain great employees and all the other things. But the bottom line is, if you can't afford it, you don't do it. Did I not say that? And I said, I don't believe that there's a tax problem here, because that was the other thing I corrected at the front end, where we were accused of wanting to increase taxes or whatever by the posts on Nextdoor and things like that, because there's misunderstandings. The reality is, it's a service that's essential and needs to be provided. And it's what I said to the county mayor, and I wasn't trying to be mean to him, but funding essential services should come above all else. And while beautiful parks and things like that are really important and exciting, they're not the most important thing when somebody dials 911 and needs help, whether it's law enforcement or fire rescue or EMS. So the frustrating part is, I believe that there's a spending problem elsewhere, not us. When you charge 61% more taxes to the county, to our residents, and I asked, can anybody tell me what services are being provided in Mount Carmel for that 61% higher tax rate?
None.
And you can't get a straight answer, because it's economy of scale, truly. So there's things that we support countywide. The dispatch center, in my opinion, it's a good model. Regional makes sense because it's the least expensive. Because if each one of us tried to do our own dispatch center, we couldn't, and we would cost ourselves out of business quickly. So I was there banging on the. I don't know that we would have moved anything by the time we got done, and I made no commitments to it. But I said, there's no way $136,000 is going to come out of our budget. I promise you that. And I said, I'm not speaking for the board, but I'm telling you that I don't see any way that that's possible.
Where does it stop?
Right.
So that was the
Is there a
reason
cap?
why I said that their offer of an advisory committee position means nothing. If you get true municipalities that are participating in this, you at least have a voice on the board. Now, it doesn't mean you won't get outvoted or whatever, but at the end of the day, as you're able to have the same conversations that I'm having as your representative at these meetings, and have those difficult conversations where, hey, I respect the employees and I want to pay them well, but we have to live within our means, and we have to be responsible stewards of the public money. And what does that mean? It means that you don't give to everybody that's got their hand out wanting, social services from the municipality or the county, or arts and those things. And while those are important for quality of place, where does the priority go when people are suffering loss because we can't provide emergency services? That's my takeaway from all of this. And it's not just because I came from the emergency services side of the house, but we have an obligation and responsibility, and I can't answer that question. What I can tell you is it's increasing by 23% a year. That is an unsustainable number, and I told Lynn that in the conversation.
I mean, that's
Did they not think about
bleeding
that
out.
ahead of time, like a 5-year plan?
No.
There was no thinking when they just went in there and started frivolously spending their money, because they knew that eventually they would come back to the municipalities and we would be hung up by. It's either danged if we do and danged if we don't.
I mean, what do our options look like as far as, for their current year budget? If they're wanting money this year, we would have to get, when would their budget?
They don't
have to
want
be
money
passed?
this year.
They don't want money
They
this
want
year?
us starting in the next budget year,
Oh,
I
yeah,
believe.
because that's when it
Is
goes
that-
up higher.
That's not the way I took it.
Okay.
I took it as July 1.
I took July 1, they want.
Yeah, the
69.
next fiscal year,
Right,
the next
right,
budget.
right,
year.
okay, so
Okay.
my question is, when did they pass their budget?
He hasn't even started working on
He
it.
made the comment, well, now I
Of
know I
course.
can start using this to work on our budget.
So he's
How
never
does-
had a
so-
budget?
So
For
No.
next fiscal year.
so he's basing we can't get a number for next fiscal year because we have to factor in the money that we're gonna get for us.
He's supposed to have
instead of
these
taking-
the cost share numbers finalized by the 26th. Is that what he said, Jim?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
and have you seen their last year's budget?
Yep.
Besides labor, is labor the biggest over expenditure that they're seeing growth in, or
Yes.
is it capital? Is it, what
Yes,
is?
I did, so they gave us a 3-year budget that shows 25, 26 as a proposed budget. So I don't know if it was the one that was passed or not, and I've asked for that information. I only got 1 year's worth of employee information to kind of flow that. But I did get something. And I don't know the exponential growth of what that looks like. I can't put my finger on it, but I can tell you that revenues decreased year over year for those 3 years, while costs increased. And the costs were focused in the personnel benefit side, obviously, because of what they did. So it's basically what I said again, is you have a spending problem. Now, we can keep holding our hands out for revenue and everything else, but we have to be responsible stewards of the public dollars. And the problem sometimes is emergency services in all of our aspects thinks that they're the most important thing in the world. EMS was here a few months ago asking for money from us, correct? Remember that meeting? And I actually brought that up in the conversation too. And I went back to the county has formed all of these quasi-governmental things or contractors providing service to them. And the county is not funding them in their entirety. And now they want it to be a cost share with the municipalities. But I don't have an answer for this is the problem, because if they shut off dispatching tomorrow, it hurts them, it hurts him, and it hurts our residents.
Our residents, absolutely.
And then,
But also it's hard to not say that you're not a city resident and in addition to a county resident. There seems to be this disconnect of you're this or this. When actually, when I look at my tax bills, I pay city taxes for these services. I pay county taxes for these services. But now as the well's dried up here, they're circling back wanting everybody's coming with their hand out, because like you just said, I would expect EMS to be back within the next 6 months before the 26 budget.
if we do this,
Yeah, what he's gonna say.
if we do this, then every single agency that is either part of the county or not part of the county will be holding their hand out. And an interesting thing was said when we were talking, because basically, and Mitch hit it on the head, the county more than doubles their contribution with this cost share process, because their 420,000 is still expected on top of whatever's listed on the sheets that I gave you. So that's $900,000 almost.
With our hope.
Is that gonna fly through the county? And I said, what are you gonna do if they don't pay? And he goes, we won't dispatch for them. I said, so who gets hurt by that? Not the county. The residents of Mount Carmel will get hurt by that, because you're still dispatching Mitch and the police department, but EMS won't get dispatched. They have to figure out a way to dispatch EMS. So I don't think they thought through their answer very much.
How is that legal at that point? Because they're still collecting the 911, they're still getting my phone tax bill every month, or is that just?
911
just for
primarily is for answering the call. So
Okay.
call taking.
Would
That's
there,
TCA.
So they
would
wanna
there
send
be
it-
any value in us sending letters to our state representatives saying, let's get this
100%
updated?
there would be.
I would encourage you all to pass a resolution of something saying to, we're requesting Mr. Stables to pass a resolution, me to sign, to send to all our state representatives, basically saying that this language, and laying our argument out to them of how, because if you looked at if you all recall in the budget, there was a great graphic that showed $1 that Tyler made and where that dollar went. Okay, so if we had one of those for the county too, is it a fair statement to say that you, on our bills, would see a 911 line item in both dollars, where they're coming from county dollars and city dollars? That's a fair statement, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think at that point, we should at least, make our case to our state representatives that, because they're getting ready to go in session if they're not already. And so we, this month, look to even get this language updated, write a letter, send it to them, even the speaker. I mean, whatever we need to do to get us out there, that this language need to be changed so that we're not getting stuck with a bill that you'll have one vote on a seat, which the 911 just put out their annual report. I'd be glad to email out everybody a copy of it out. But it has their list of their board representatives right there. And when you look at it, I think it's also a fair statement to state that there is not a single representation of an elected official over the $60,000 of our town, from our town having any say or input. When you look at this board, we don't have say over that. They can continue to tax our citizens at a rate that they decide, and we're the one getting,
Shafted.
Yeah.
Our residents are paying twice for something, is what I said before. And the reality is, in my opinion, the county should focus that as an essential service and fund it as so. EMS is considered an essential service in the state of Tennessee, codified by TCA. They contract with a service, but then they came around and asked, well, won't you help fund it? The answer is, if it's an essential service and it's the county's responsibility to provide, I would imagine it's the county's responsibility to fund. Would you agree? So the same goes for emergency communication districts. And Lynn told me that they had taxing ability up till 2014. I looked that up and I couldn't find anywhere where they had taxing ability. I think that the county was taxing on their behalf and then quit. And like a dedicated line, if you would, above, below the line. So I say all that to say, there are ways of funding this. The only agency in this county that touches every resident, and if you're talking about a regional system, is the county for taxing purposes. So fair and equitable distribution of that, because this isn't really fair and equitable distribution based on population. Population is not an indicator of how many calls you're going to have for service and the need for dispatch. And I had that conversation with them. I'm not comfortable with their call stats either, so I wasn't willing to go on a limb and accept their call stats as a point of discussion for how you do that. They had a CTAS formula where calls were included and population, and there was some weighted average, and the county went down and all the municipalities went up. And I'm like, can somebody explain the methodology to this? Apparently the guy that did that no longer works for CTAS.
So they couldn't just print off a basic report on how many calls they dispatched to Mount Carmel for a month?
They can.
They can.
But they would.
But no, they did. But the answer is that number of calls for the year includes self-initiated stops or calls for service that we generate on this side when we pull up and say, hey, I got a cow out in the middle of the road.
So they're fluffed numbers.
Well, it's gonna include everything.
Correct. It has everything
Some
on
of
there.
those would be
If Joe checks by and gets on the call.
A property check. Yeah. At night, they'll generate a CFS for that. And
That's ridiculous.
It's a ploy that's used by dispatch centers to bolster their numbers for demand of more dispatchers and those types of things. Their staffing model is such that they have 4 dispatchers on days, 3 on nights, and basically cover that way. They won't go below 3, but they'd have 4 assigned. But there's 16, so they have to give their people time off too. I mean, you can't just keep, because of coverage, 8,760 hours a year for every full-time equivalency. So if I need 4 seats filled, that's 4.2 times 4. 4.2 employees per 8,760 hours. So at a 40-hour week.
I got a question on this,
Yes,
Jim.
sir.
Does anybody know how much money they take in from each phone they get money from? Does anybody have a,
$1.50 a month. You can
Yeah.
look on the-
It's $1.50. It's supposed to go up to $1.86.
$1.80, I was gonna say, he said it was going up, yeah.
But
So they're getting
How
an
much-
increase in
how much
revenue.
they
It
get a
hasn't been
month?
codified yet.
The state 911 director was at our first meeting, and he said it was going up possibly, maybe July 1, something like that.
it's in the legislature's hands, and I'm not sure that the legislature is gonna do that in the national election cycle, but
No.
stranger things could happen.
I wanna know how much money they take in down there per month or per year.
We can find that out.
I can tell you.
1.1 million and some change.
And who gets all of that? The call takers?
I mean, you have same expenses that you would have here of insurance, payroll, your general operating expenses, capital. What am I leaving out? They have to. Their hardware is going to be more expense. Like the computer systems, the radio antennas, because they would have to have radios in addition to. I'm sure I'm leaving other stuff out, but I mean they do have expenses. I'm not discrediting that, but I agree that they bring in a lot of money.
I think there's a whole lot of waste.
Yeah.
So in 23-24, their total operating expense was $1,630,191. In 24-25, it went to $2,038,066, and in 25-26, it's $2,142,356. I can tell you in going through this that they provided to me, all of it is in the personnel areas and the benefit areas are where those increases occurred. And the fund balance that they shared,
TCA. Are they in TCA?
TCRS,
Yeah, sorry, TCRS.
I believe so.
how are those 2-0? Is it down here?
Yes,
So that's the remaining fund reserve.
I guess so.
So in 23-24, their fund balance was $1,641,606. Their proposed for 25-26 ending reserve balance is $472,656. They've blown through $1.2 million in the last 2.5 years
That's
funding those things. That's why we're in the position we're in now. So,
How many board members are there?
what's that?
How many board members are there on the board?
I can't even begin to tell you.
The Hawkins County Emergency Communications District Governing Board is comprised of 9 members as defined in TCA and appointed by the county mayor.
Are they paid employees, paid board members?
I doubt it.
But it's everybody.
But when you look at
all
who it
volunteers.
compromises of, there's the director of Hawkins County Rescue Squad, Rogersville Police Department, Hawkins County Emergency EMA Director, Hawkins County Fire Association Director, 3 county citizens, Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, and Tennessee Highway Patrol.
So if Rogersville dispatches their own, why are they sitting on this board?
Well,
I can't answer that question.
that.
I don't know, could the
position-
news ask that
So
question?
that board position that you're speaking of was the one that was announced.
Okay, but they don't pay, they dispatch their own, they have no,
It was on purpose.
Will you say that one more time?
That board position, it's just a law enforcement at-large position in TCA code. That was occupied by a Mount Carmel police officer until it was replaced, until Lunsford Senior retired and Travis Fields from Roswell was appointed.
instead of pointing like somebody from Churchill, even Socornsville, back up here. Of course, because it's all Rogersville. So crazy, isn't it?
There is zero representation on that board from Swan,
Exactly.
Churchill, and Mount Carmel.
Exactly.
Have you talked to anybody from Scornsville, Churchill?
Yes.
What's their opinions about the same thing as ours?
So everybody's of the same opinion that none of us can do it without that. And we can't become the public safety answering, because I said that. I said, tell you what, give me the 911 dollars. Let me see what I can do with it. And that's not permissible. So by TCA, I don't believe. So, but everybody I think is frustrated, and everybody wants to live in the past. I guess in the history of this, there was a lot of animus sitting in these meetings and trying to navigate this. I don't know how much our police chief participated back in the day, but I got indication from everybody there that there wasn't much participation, whether there was attendance or that kind of thing. I'm not trying to look backwards, I'm trying to look forwards and figure out how we fix this, because at the end of the day, there's gonna be people calling 911, and if they're not transferring the call, all of a sudden they're transferring it to Mitch's phone number or David's phone number, and we're trying to dispatch people from a police car or a fire truck. That's a problem.
Well, isn't that what Phil said, not long ago, that it's taxation without representation? Where's the T? Go down here and press the T.
I know what I'd tell them. You already know what I'd tell them.
But we still have an issue for operational purposes that has to be addressed, and that's the part I'm trying to get.
The biggest
clear.
thing that I would say with that is that I'm not willing to, well, I probably shouldn't say I wouldn't be willing to even enter into any agreements to give them money without a voting seat for representation from somebody that this board appoints, not even that board appoints.
Yeah.
That's another big factor of it. Somebody that this board appoints.
So because it was founded under the county, I think the county mayor will still be able to appoint or have to appoint.
And that's a
And
problem.
that may be under, and I'm not.
TCA code, I understand.
Correct.
See
I'm
that,
not,
yeah.
I'm
You're right.
not, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm trying to make sure that you understand that if we define it so tightly that your recommendation takes precedent, so if you send a name to them with the majority of your board endorsing that candidate, my suggestion is that they would appoint that person, but it's still the mayor's responsibility for Hawkins County, according to TCA, to appoint the board members. I think that he appoints what the director
That's
recommends
true.
to him.
I would say that that's very true, that they make it, that board makes a recommendation and then the mayor appoints it. But that again doesn't, to me, I still would have problems with that if we don't have the ability to appoint it, but yet we're still having to get billed for this service that we have no representation on, other than who they think it should be. That just, to me, says it's still,
And they're down there.
I really think the legislative route is the way that we need to go with this. It probably, won't go far, but at least we make the attempt of correcting it where it needs to, and maybe even getting the conversation started, because it's something that even if it did change in the state, it would probably take years, just realistically how slow government works.
Well, we need somebody to champion it for us,
Right.
as well. And I'm pretty sure that this isn't unique to just us. There are many other 911 centers that are going through this. Greenville apparently just got hit, and the state came in and is telling them what they have to do, and all that. So
What does that look like?
Right.
I wish I could tell you. It's kind of like the utility advisory board taking over our utility if we were in a deficit budget.
But would they come in and say that each municipality has to pay, or they'll make it county-wide?
No, what they'll say is the primary focus of the 911 funds is to fund call taking of 911 calls. All of the dispatch things that you do, pare it back. That's basically what they would
So
do.
they make money.
Correct, Mitch?
That's what I understood. I mean, he said the state would come in, same thing they do with utility boards. They would set the rate that you need X amount of dollars to come to opt to do this service. You don't get to come up with it yourself. And then here's your options for coming up with it. It would be in the same situation. Now that number may be much larger, but we'd be in the same situation. And if you didn't pay it, then you would lose the service.
They still be want every community to pay it then?
Well, they may
That I
want it,
don't
but
know.
that 911 board is not coming in telling us we have to pay the county for this. The
County.
quasi-governmental body that was formed by the county's action, they're the ones that have to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
The only thing that they have to do is answer 911 calls. They don't have to dispatch. They could pass it through and.
Where does the geographic makeup of the 911 calls that route to them? Is that strictly the county?
Supposed to.
Yes.
It's based off cell phone towers.
Based off, right. So it's based off the proximity of the county for the call taking of 911. So we couldn't start our taking the 911 calls to get the revenue there, where we couldn't get the call from beginning. I'm just hypothetical. I know it wouldn't work, but we couldn't take the revenue there they're always going to have control of the revenue off the off the phone
The
bills.
the director that gets to be a PSAP, gets to be approved public
Yeah.
safety answering point. And the director made the comment in the first meeting that the state has zero intentions of approving any more PSAPs.
Because I asked that question.
Because Jim did.
How is that not a monopoly? Or like they have.
It's kind of
I
like
guess they want-
EMS.
I guess they want it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah,
EMS.
because
though.
monopolies work so well.
It's kind of like EMS because they quasi granted it essential service status, but with essential service comes funding and all of those other things, and that's where I keep getting hung up on all of this. If you want a Cadillac emergency services side, that's great, but you can't hand out money like it's candy for every other item or issue that you want to address, i.e. quality of life, arts, entertainment, all those things that are niceties, but not necessities in the big picture of things when you're looking at this.
Does the, based off your all's opinion after looking at the budget, is there, or previous year's budget, like, is there room that they could make cuts? Would you know enough information to say that?
I don't want to go there yet because I don't feel like I've gotten enough of the information that I asked for to give me that place. I've got 1 year's worth of employees, not by name, but by numbers. So I've got salaries and things like that. I asked for some other detailed information. The email I got back, well, we don't have that. We don't have the ability to do that. Okay, I understand the answer to the question, but the problem is that's one of the reasons they're in the position they're in now. Because you've got to ask the right questions to be able to form a strategy to solve your problem. And they're not in that place. So, and forgive me, I'll jump off a cliff here real quick. I think that they have administrative positions, quite a few, that may be redundant. Now, they provide dispatch services as well, but they're doing multiple jobs. And that creates some chaos in the mix, if you will, of figuring out how to parse a salary.
Right.
And that's what I was asking about when I did that. So trying to make sense of that. And I'm not going to say they're top heavy, but they do have quite a few administrative people for the size of the organization and the amount of calls that they have in a year. And I've been associated with much larger organizations that didn't have that many people. And they utilized a lot more technology-based things to meet those needs. So I don't know how much that process is. Dispatching is a very expensive process. It just is. And like, if we're part of a regional system, and I'll use fire station tone and alerting systems as an example, if they wanted us to buy a certain receiver for what they have at the comm center, that's where we end up in a pickle of having to pay for things, and that makes sense. But me paying for their backbone is problematic. That's just my opinion. So
it all boils down to we're going to be eventually paying something. We just don't know at this point what we're going to be paying.
That's y'all's choice. And I'm not telling you should or you shouldn't. What I'm telling you is if we don't, we're going to have to figure out what we do to address the police calls and everything else, and how we remain seamless in that process. And I don't have a great answer for you right now because that's a big nut to crack.
System-wise, would it be possible that if we went to Rogersville to see could they dispatch our calls cheaper, would that be an option? No, because 911 still has to get it to Rogersville.
You still would have to transfer to Rogersville, they would have to dispatch us or transfer it to us.
And at that point,
Now, I don't know what type of equipment, the other question would be what type of equipment they have to be able to do that to us.
Because the county's transferred to Rogersville, and Rogersville transferred to us, so you're getting a very delayed.
that's what I was gonna say. You're gonna affect that quality of the time response, and you're adding to your
Your turnout time.
Exactly. Exactly. That's where you're going to have impact on citizens that way.
The citizens are going to suffer
They're the
the consequence of
ultimate,
any of that.
regardless.
Correct.
And that's where,
Not only in the call side, but in the insurance side. And you all know I came from ISO. So one of their things is they don't want you transferring calls all over. And you actually get penalized pretty hard for that. And in turn, people's rates
so that's not
would result in.
Sure, it might be a lawsuit too. You know, if you start dealing with towels and somebody gets hurt because of a towel error, I mean, you're looking at really big lawsuits.
you're right. We don't want to increase our liability.
Correct.
No, wouldn't they be lawsuits to the county though?
Mm.
I mean,
Everybody, in a lawsuit like that, everybody get named and we
Yeah,
sort it out.
and everybody sues everybody for everything now. So this is a high liability area that results in that type of situation. They'll challenge the dispatch protocol, and they'll challenge, all of those types of things. It's why biting off a dispatch scenario for us is not a great idea, because you can't just create it. And I'll say this, and I said it during the conversation, is if all of the elected officials, including you all, if you were able to have volunteer police and volunteer fire and volunteer dispatch, this wouldn't be a conversation. But you can't do that because that's not a reliable system. And when you say that, some volunteer departments are outstanding and great, while others you might have a hard time getting them to a call. And the amount of money that you save with those volunteers is amazing, but it's also a hit and miss. Mitch could have 16 people tonight and maybe 3 tomorrow because of their work schedules and things like that. So it's an up and down system. Dispatch, it's about availability. And that's basically what you're paying for, is the person sitting at the console waiting on a call to come in to do something with it. Now, it makes no sense to me that the state of Tennessee has chosen to focus on the 911 call taking without the second part, which is get it somewhere where it can be dealt with. So that's the fight for the legislation side that probably needs to occur.
And I guarantee the general person doesn't understand that. They think what the rest of us do. Well, we pay for it. No, you just pay for them to answer the dang phone.
Yep. I called 911. I got a dispatcher.
But that's, I would encourage you all to reach out to reach out with your questions to some of these representatives from the agencies or county or whatever, because this is an active situation, and I'll be glad to share out anything I can with you all to email and stuff, send you the documentation. They just released their annual report today. If you want to take a look at that, or shoot everybody a copy of it for the E911. But it's I'm really not crazy about this at all. It's
so taking away from this, you want me to produce a resolution for the legislature to address.
Just for us to sign to send a letter to the legislature addressing this issue, explaining the problem, explaining how our residents are, being taxed taxed twice at least, and this is a phrasing error, a change in the TCA code could be beneficial to not only towns of us but other towns. We saw an article about there was a town having a lawsuit about a very similar issue in Tennessee.
Maynardville and Union County.
Union. So it's like this is not just an us problem. It goes across the state, and we can at least reach out to our state legislature to express the concerns and issues that we have. So I would request that we look at doing that.
Okay. Any other questions I might be able to answer?
Any other questions on 911?
Sorry to hold you here so long.
All right.
No, we need to know this.